Welcome back, guys at home. If you're catching us again for another live episode, got the amazing writer Greg Parks joining us today. How's it going, Greg?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Matthew. How are you?
Oh, very good. Have to give you a good intro, man. Much respect for you and what you do. We appreciate it greatly.
I appreciate you guys.
Yes, sir. So, if people on here don't know who Greg Parks is, he writes for UFL Board. He does a lot of different things in terms of wrestling as well. Guys at home, I'll have the links rolling so you can check him out or find him. But most likely, you know who this man is already, so it all works out. Greg, what have you been up to since we last spoke, though, man? How's things going your way?
Just trying to keep my head above water. There's a lot of UFL to watch and write about. There's a lot of wrestling to watch and write about, and try to have a life somewhere in between there. So, and a job and all the things like that. So it's been challenging, but it's been fun and rewarding. And getting to come on here and talk to guys like you and shoot the bull about the UFL makes it all worth it.
Yes, sir. It's always a good time. I know every time we get on a show, we talk for quite a while about a numerous plethora of topics. So it's a good time for sure. In terms of your wrestling stuff, I actually looked at some of it last night, and it's pretty cool, man. I'm not a big wrestling guy, but nice to see you, pursuing a different project. I checked out your website and looked at some of your articles. So good stuff. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. I've been writing for pwtorch.com, which is one of the two main insider newsletters that have been going since the 1980s.
Wow.
I don't run it, but I've been a part of it now for over 15 years as a
Wow.
columnist and writing a weekly column in the Torch newsletter and hosting podcasts on the Torch network and everything like that. So it's been a blast, but it's a lot to keep up with. Adding UFL to your plate, it's getting down toward the end of the season here, so hopefully in a few weeks we'll be able to step back and take a deep breath and kind of assess how the first season of the UFL went.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm kind of getting wore out a little bit. I think the heat is kind of adding to it as well. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't want the season to end, but it will be nice to kind of step back, take a little break, and breathe and talk about the things that were done good and the things that could be done better as well. And I know that's some conversations that we've had before in the past, and I'm sure will happen again in the future.
Yeah, it's going to give us a chance to, it's hard when you're in the middle of it sometimes to really take a look at what's gone right and what's gone wrong. I think when you get that opportunity to take a step back and take a 32,000-foot view of what happened, then, it'll be a little easier to assess. And hopefully the league does the same thing. Hopefully they take a little bit of a break after the season, after the championship game, take a week or two to relax, and then really do a deep dive into the season from every angle and decide, okay, what do we need to improve upon to be successful in season two, to be more successful than we were in season one? And what did we do well? And what can we sort of count on as a pillar of our organization for year two?
Yes, sir. Yeah, actually have some time to build on this thing is what I'm looking forward to. Actually having the marketing and a schedule out before, a month before the season starts. All those things, they make me excited for the future. And
And that's the weird thing for me, Matthew, is I've covered, going back to the XFL in 2001, I did a little bit of covering that in real time, but a lot more writing about it after the fact. And then I covered the XFL in 2020, starting for UFL board, covered the XFL in 2023. So this is or 2020, 2023 rather. And so this is the first real off season, normal off season, that, knock on wood somewhere, that I'm going to be covering. And so it's going to be a little strange to cover a hopefully uneventful, relatively speaking, off season for a football league.
yeah, compared to last year, that was just a mess, with
I
the
know.
speculative rumors here and the merger rumors there. We didn't really know left from right or what was going on. So I agree with you 100%. And I think, like I said, I'm a little tired. And I think that's why, is because we had this huge, I wouldn't say huge, but this 6-month gap where we're just all wondering what was going on. And we're fighting these speculative rumors. We're talking about things that are factual. It's hard to hold your head up no matter what you're doing in that nature.
Absolutely.
But Greg, so week 9 has just finished Sunday. We had our regional game Sunday afternoon. How did you feel about week 9 of the UFL?
I really enjoyed it. I thought that San Antonio Birmingham was a really, really strong game. It might be a game that we're talking about for years to come as far as UFL fans, just because of the significance. San Antonio beating Birmingham, stopping their 15-game win streak, giving them their first loss of the season. In the standings, in terms of Birmingham, probably doesn't end up meaning a whole lot, but for San Antonio, I think this was a game where they arrived. They did only put up 18 points, so it was not some kind of offensive outburst. It wasn't like they spanked the Stallions or anything like that. But I do think that win put them on the map. I think a lot of people for most of this season were assuming St. Louis would be the team coming out of the XFL conference that would face Birmingham. There's a lot of real interest from fans to see St. Louis playing the championship game at home in St. Louis. And there's a lot of projecting and fantasy booking what kind of crowd they would be able to get for that game. And I think San Antonio, with their week 9 performance, said, well, hold on a minute. You got to get past us first in the conference championship. So that was a game I think that people are going to be talking about for a while. I know I'm going to have a column coming up later this week. It's going to break down what San Antonio did on defense to hold the best offensive team in the UFL to just 9 points and about 80 yards under their season average offensively. So I'm going to have a lot of fun writing that. And then, you had the Arlington game, which was a good game. They beat St. Louis, and Manny Wilkins sort of came back down to earth a little bit there. Houston put up a really good fight against Michigan. And then they can't all be winners. So we had DC putting a hurting on Memphis in a game that was not as competitive as even the score indicated by the end. But overall, I thought it was a good week of action.
Agreed. I wasn't a big fan of the regional setup because I would have really liked to watch both of these games. And personally, I found that if I'm trying to do two at one time, it's not productive. So made my hard decision there. Chose the Michigan game. But I don't know, man. I'm agreed with you that it seems like last year XFL time when we were coming up on this late in the season, things got a little dry, a little boring in my opinion. We knew who the winners were. We knew who the strong teams were for the most part. This year, it's kind of been a toss-up there at the end. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully this next week will provide some more good games coming through.
Yeah, and there's something still to play for in Week 10. St. Louis and San Antonio is going to be a big game. That's going to be for home field advantage in the conference championship. Michigan isn't going to be able to play at home because of a scheduling conflict, but they can really take a stab at getting some momentum against a Birmingham team that doesn't really have a lot to play for in Week 10. So if they can get a win there, all of a sudden they've got a lot of confidence going into the USFL conference championship game. And then it was just announced on social media before we came on the air that the winner of the Memphis-Houston game, which is a game pitting 1-8 teams against each other, is going to get the number 1 draft pick in the 2025, wow. I think it's the 2025 UFL draft, but the UFL draft that will be coming up. And they'll also have the first pick in every subsequent round of the draft. So it's not going to be a snake format of the draft like we've seen in the past. So even a game with 1-8 teams is going to have something at stake.
Interesting. That is very, very interesting. Yeah, I didn't see that. I've been busy today. Have to check that out some more. That wow. We'll get to that. We'll get to it. I don't want to keep talking about the subjects when we're gonna get to them anyway. But anyway, let's hop into some games if that's fine with you. Let's talk about game 1, and that was the St. Louis Battlehawks traveled to Arlington to take on the Renegades. Renegades beat them 36-22. Upset alert here for the Battlehawks. Not too surprising in my opinion, considering they didn't have AJ McCarron. Really, in my opinion, this game started off well for St. Louis, but we kind of saw a turnover there at the beginning, and that led to an Arlington score, and that seemed to kind of be the theme that got Arlington this win for this game. Now, don't get me wrong. Arlington looked really good, and they put it together. In terms of like St. Louis, it did not look like the same team, in my opinion. And of course, it's not going to because McCarron's not present. St. Louis did battle back, and they took the lead in the second half. But Manny Wilkins, man, he threw 3 picks there at the fourth quarter and basically gave the game up for him.
Yeah, the 3 interceptions was really the story of the game for St. Louis.
Yeah,
Manny Wilkins had a decent week, the week before, leading St. Louis to a victory, but he came back down to earth here. Still used his legs really well, I thought, but the three interceptions were backbreakers for St. Louis. Certainly, Arlington was gifted some short fields, but I think just as concerning to St. Louis would be the 36 points they gave up.
Yeah.
St. Louis's defense has done pretty well this year, but Arlington was able to run the ball on them. They were able to throw the ball with Luis Perez. They did use some trick plays there with the Sooner pass that Perez used to hit Sal Cannella for a 46-yard touchdown. So there was some trickery involved, but I don't think anyone in St. Louis is going to be happy with that defensive performance. So it's going to be a key game coming up, and I'm not sure AJ McCarron is going to play. I think he was still listed as day-to-day by head coach Anthony Beck today in his press conference. So it's a game with all of a sudden a lot on the line for St. Louis, and so do you rush AJ McCarron back to try to get home field advantage? We saw what a home field advantage for San Antonio can look like. I mean, that played a big part in them upsetting Birmingham, which those 11,000 fans in the Alamo Dome this past week. So that's got to be on the mind of St. Louis too. I'm sure that's not a place they want to go into in the conference championship and have to face a suddenly surging San Antonio team. So do you rush McCarron back to try to get this victory? And so, I mean, it's some hard decisions that Anthony Becht is going to have to make this week.
Yes, sir. Agreed. And it doesn't really seem like they have another man up. They got rid of their emergency quarterback, and AJ last week, he sat almost as a standby point in case he had to go in the game. So it's curious if you're confident AJ's good to go, I mean, I see the process of thinking, but
the other option is Brandon Silvers. He's been their number 3 quarterback all year. He's
a veteran. I forget about him, man, because you haven't heard his name. You haven't seen him. So, that's my bad.
He doesn't have the mobility that Manny Wilkins does, but he may not also put the ball in danger the same way that Manny Wilkins did. So, that may be a consideration for head coach Becht this week, is if they don't want to play AJ McCarron and they're not sure if Manny Wilkins can get it done against a tough San Antonio defense. Brandon Silvers is an option, a veteran quarterback they can throw in there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I forget about Silvers, man, because you really haven't heard or seen much of him this year. And he, in my opinion, he goes into the ranks, and not in terms of skill, but in terms of years of experience and playing with Luis Perez, man. I mean, he's up there. He's been around this whole spring football game as well. So he is a person that could lead this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, when I talk about Coach Becht having a lot of decisions to make, that's one of them.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. My mouse broke on me. Batteries popped out.
We're live, man. Anything can happen.
I've learned, man. I just let it ride now. There's no shame in my game. I can't imagine going back and editing out the stuff like I used to. It blows my mind. But yeah, all in all, this was an upset for the Battlehawks, and great for Arlington. Gives them a little something to stand on as the season closes, because they don't have a postseason at all. And Bob Stoops, I mean, he really needed this, I feel, as well. This was good for the team and good for his soul, because you got to start questioning yourself a little bit after a while of a losing season.
And the announcers talked about Bob Stoops never really being in this position before, where they're out of it so early. And, they had the ring ceremony, I think, the day or two before, so that may have given the team some extra motivation. But unfortunately, this was kind of a glimpse into what this team could have been had they been on track all year and had they gotten a little luck on their side, to be quite honest, because there were games that they really played well and the ball just didn't bounce their way at the end. And so, I mean, they could be right in the thick of things with St. Louis and San Antonio had some things gone their way, had they not had a couple of dumb penalties at the end of games that really cost them. So certainly some of it was self-inflicted. Some of it was just bad luck, but they're really starting to put it together here. Unfortunately, it's a little too late. And they have some quarterback questions as well. Luis Perez, balling out this year, absolutely, but they're 2-7, and so they have 2 really strong young quarterbacks behind him, and I'm wondering if Bob Stoops wants to get a look at them. Lindsey Scott and Holton Ahlers have played in a couple of games. I think Ahlers was active for the first time last week. Scott has seen spot duty as a gadget quarterback, but being 2-7, being the last week of the season, you have to wonder if Bob Stoops wants to give a little longer look, give a couple series, give a quarter to one of these guys, just to see what they can put together, what kind of drives they can put together when they're not being pulled after 2 plays.
Yes, sir. And he's not scared to do that, seeing how that was successful last year. They got Louise from a trade and ran off to the championship. So I agree with that. I got a clip from Demarcus I'm going to play. It's about 7 minutes or so long, and it's kind of the breakdown in full from his point of view. He's an Arlington fan. But before I get into that, let's talk about the numbers. Now, the TV numbers have not dropped yet. I messaged Mike Mitchell. He said because of the holiday, they're delayed. So those should drop tomorrow. We had 8,500 in attendance in Arlington, which wasn't too bad in Arlington. But in terms of TV, I'm really curious to see how this week played out, especially compared to our big dip down from last week. So very, very hesitant and excited to get those numbers just to kind of see what's going on, especially compared to prior years of spring football seasons.
It's going to be interesting for sure. I'm interested particularly in the San Antonio-Birmingham number, knowing that Birmingham was undefeated and kind of testing the power of social media, right? Because as the clips were shared on social media, as people were giving updates on the game, and San Antonio was taking a lead, and San Antonio was holding a lead, and Birmingham was coming back, was there a little bit of casual interest in tuning in to see the end of that game? So that's going to be the one that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I will say this about before I kick on Demarcus's clip. Some of the production of the games was a little choppy over the weekend. I don't know if you noticed, Greg, a lot of like in and out, cutting out, camera angles wonky. Hopefully they get some of that fixed before if we run up on this championship. Do you know in the playoff format where is that going to come on? Is that going to be Fox, ABC, or are they going to split this like they've done in the past?
I think they're splitting the conference championship games. One's going to be on ABC, one's going to be on Fox, and then the championship, I believe, is going to be on Fox. I don't have right in front of me which one is which, but the Arlington game had some technical difficulties, and that must have been just something going on there. I don't know if it was the heat. I know it was really hot there in Arlington. It was really hot in a couple of the games this weekend. So I wonder if that played a role in some of the glitches that we saw, but it was definitely noticeable in that game, but I think they got it squared away by the end.
Yeah. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't just on my end. I always kind of restart my apps and even like restart my internet sometimes if I think there's an issue, just to see if it's on my end. But I have noticed that the Arlington games seem to be like that. There's been a few of these games in Arlington where it's like, what is going on with this camera? But anyway, wanted to point that out. I'm going to play Demarcus's clip. We'll listen to him break the game down from his point of view. It's about, like I said, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. But guys at home, try to watch it the best you can. I mean, he does a really good job. His production style is getting better and better. And so I'm enjoying watching the AFN crew come aboard and get their own personalities with all this stuff. It's pretty cool seeing them be able to break down this game efficiently and quickly. So here's Demarcus talking more about the Arlington versus STL game.
All right, guys, Demarcus back again. Let's talk about that Arlington-St. Louis game on Saturday. Now, this was the second match between Arlington and St. Louis. Of course, you know that first game, St. Louis kicked a walk-off field goal to win that game 24-21, and a game that was, again, pretty exciting there as well. This time, Renegades get the win 36-22 and get a little bit of revenge. So I'm pretty sure they were pretty happy about that. Home crowd loved it. This is the last home game of the season, so it was good to get that win against a little bit of a rival. Let's go ahead and talk about the offense first. Luis Perez had himself a pretty good day. He went 24 for 36, 259 yards, and 3 TDs, no turnovers. Of course, you know, with Luis Perez, you're going to get the same thing every single week, week in and week out. He's a very consistent guy, very head down, focused. But pretty good game there. They didn't really do too much to knock him off his game, although they got some pressures there. But for the most part, Renegades were able to do what they needed to do at that particular position. Running game was okay, decent by Renegade standards. They get almost about 100 yards. So rushing, which is, you know, something. They were able to set themselves up here and there. Devin Darrington had 41 yards with 8 attempts. Devion Smith, 40 yards with 10 attempts, and a couple of scrambles there by Luis Perez. Again, no scores in the running game, but decent production. I think if you have been watching the Renegades this year and you saw how slow the running game was to get started this year, I think that this is something that you'll take. They could have done this in more of their games. I think, again, a lot of things that if they could have just done it sooner, you see a difference in the win column. Sal Cannella and Isaiah Winstead had pretty good games. This particular game also, Cannella takes home 70 yards, 5 receptions. He has a 46-yard TD. Isaiah Winstead has also proven himself to be another guy that can be trusted, that guy that can come in and get you some pretty good production. He gets 64 yards this particular game off of 4 receptions and a 26-yard TD. Now, let's go over to the defense. Now, on the defensive side, they don't get any sacks, but they were able to force Manny Wilkins out of the pocket, make him uncomfortable, and kind of force him into bad decisions. They get 4 turnovers in this game, 3 of those being interceptions. So, again, really good job of kind of taking a guy who's still trying to get his feet wet, trying to get some experience there, make him uncomfortable, and put him in a situation where he can do something that you can capitalize off of. Renegades did a pretty good job of doing that. There was also a fumble recovery by Miles Dorn that the Renegades were able to capitalize off of. So overall, I think Renegades played inspired football this particular time. I think they played with something to prove to themselves, prove to their fans. Next week, they go out to Audi Field playing against the DC Defenders. Now, Reggie Barlow said last week in their game that their goal for this year is to finish 5-5. So they're going to go out there with something to play for. I think the Renegades like to play spoilers. I think if the Renegades can finish 3-7, that's only 1 shy of their win total from last year. Nothing to brag about, nothing necessarily to brag about, but it's somewhat of a small moral victory. If you can only drop to 3-7 from 4 leagues, I think at this point in the year, you kind of take what you can get. But we'll see how everything shakes out. We'll come back next week and cap that game. We'll also talk about what the Renegades might need to do for the next season to set themselves up. Spoiler alert, I don't think they have to do quite as much as people might think they do. So I'll send it back to you, Matt. You guys have a good day.
All right. So appreciate that from Demarcus. Demarcus has been with the ups and downs of the Renegades all season. So much
a lot of
respect
downs,
to him.
Unfortunately.
You know, what's funny to me about the whole thing is last season they could have been saying the same exact thing if it wasn't for that championship.
I know.
Very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But anywho, do you have anything else before we move on to the next game?
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple things that Demarcus mentioned that I want to kind of piggyback on. One of them is Isaiah Winstead had I think is his best game of the year. And, they kind of needed someone to step up. They had JP Payton get injured on the first play of the game, Javante Payton. And, that could have been a situation where Arlington went, here we go again, the bad luck and things like that, because he's their best receiver. But Winstead stepped up and did a really nice job, caught a touchdown pass in replacing Payton. And then in the run game, since Letty Brown was injured, they've really been struggling to find someone who can effectively run the ball behind Devion Smith. And Devin Darrington did a really nice job. He's a very different running back than Smith is, not quite the bruiser, not quite the size that Devion Smith brings to the table. So, he's, I think, profiles as a good backup to Devion Smith. We'll see if he sticks around into next season.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Yeah, all in all, it'll be good to see what kind of improvements this Arlington team makes next year. They are one of the few that definitely needs to do something different, and we shall see what that'll be. Mm-hmm. All right, let's roll on to the game 2. This was one of my favorites of the week. The Stallions took on the Brahmas in San Antonio. The Brahmas pulled off the win 18-9. I got XFL MikeG in the house. What's up, XFL MikeG? How you doing?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Very good.
Doing well. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, Greg. I've been following you ever since you were on this show in its first incarnation as XFL Insider before I joined. So I'm a big fan. It's an honor to be on with you.
Pleasure to talk to you, Mike, as well.
Well, Mike, tell us a little bit more about this game. You were present, correct?
Yeah, I was. It was a great game, great atmosphere, battle of heavyweights. It really was, from the USFL, the undefeated Birmingham Stallions, and the contenders in San Antonio that finally starting to get some respect. This was a very balanced game for the Brahmas. That's what it was, an overall balance on offense, defense, and special teams. And they kind of caught the Birmingham Stallions off guard a little bit. They're dealing with some issues that have kind of starting to prop up here after the game. I'll go into the game here in a second, but I wanted to bring some attention to it because we've got Greg on. Their coordinator, Chavez, has been ill the previous 2 weeks and didn't travel to last week's game or this week's game. Apparently, he had some issues that required him to go to the hospital. He was released. He said he was healthy, but didn't travel to either the last game or this game. And not performance-based, but he's been replaced probably due to health conditions by Anthony Blevins, who was formerly the head coach of the Vegas Vipers before the merger.
That's awesome that they picked him up. I saw that as well.
Yeah, I got that from Luke Miller, who I ran into during the game. It was kind of funny. He was hanging out with the Horns Forward podcasts, those guys prior to the game. I ran into Luke. I ran into BD and SAJ and some family all in the same section. So it was quite an interesting game. Getting back to the game, San Antonio was balanced. They were ready. They were passing to run, and they were able to do both. They had 10 passing first downs and 10 rushing first downs. The pressure that they were able to keep on Adrian Martinez to kind of limit him, he had 56 yards rushing. He was a leading rusher for Birmingham. But they were able to kind of keep him in check. Their front seven was ferocious. 3 sacks for them, 1 interception, 4 pass breakups for the Brahmas defense. Officially, they recorded 0 quarterback pressures, but as you can see from the highlights, they were on him all game long. John Trey Kirkland started out the scoring with a double pass that we hadn't seen from A.J. Smith since last season when he was with Houston. So we were all waiting for that, and it finally got it. 36-yard touchdown pass to Justin Smith to start the scoring. Again, San Antonio started the game with a touchdown, and the first quarter held their opponents scoreless. So that's 6 consecutive first quarters that the San Antonio Brahmas have held their opponent to no points. In this game, they were able to actually hold one of the higher power offenses to only 9 points, 1 touchdown, no successful conversion, and a field goal, bringing them to their first single-digit game of this season and possibly even last season. I'd have to double-check that. But yeah, it was a game where things were starting to click for San Antonio. They caught Birmingham kind of off guard, maybe with the switch on defensive play calling. Again, Coach Chavez was there during the week, but not traveling with the team. So the secondary coach was actually play calling for the defense.
Understood. What do you think about Dormady? I mean, I know he got injured pretty quickly and replaced with Garbers. Was Garber's performance adequate for this team?
Oh, definitely. Now, with Dormady, he came out after the second series. I wasn't able to see what injury it was or if he'd aggravated a previous injury, but he went the first 2 series. When Cody Latimer was knocked out of the game and he was out, they both kind of went out at the same time. So it kind of worked in their favor as well to get their players some work and then to work in some of their guys coming back, like Garbers. Garbers did well. He didn't throw any touchdown passes, but he didn't turn the ball over either. He was efficient with the offense. Speaking of Latimer, it was announced today that he is done for the season, unfortunately.
No.
Yeah. I still don't have details of what that injury was, and they haven't spoken to it yet. But it's a great time to shine for Alize Mack, who's a backup tight end. He was a starter last year for the Brahmas out of Notre Dame. He's a little bit different of a weapon. He's not your traditional crossing patterns and outs. He's more of a vertical threat. But, the offense did not miss a tick. We also lost Anthony McFarland. I don't know if necessarily his injury was kept him out of the game, but the staff was like, you know what, let's not risk it anymore. We're getting healthy going into the playoffs. Let's pull him out. And the next play, Morgan Ellison was able to bounce it out for the final touchdown of the game.
Ellison looked pretty good as well, I thought. I enjoyed watching it. It was like a flash from the past watching him again.
Oh, yeah. And they're rotating. You know, you got Lovett, you got Ellison, and of course, Anthony McFarland, who is such a weapon every time he touches the ball. He was the leading receiver for the game with 6 receptions. But we all know if you get him out in open space on those swing passes, he's more likely to take it to the house than anything else.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I don't know. Do you feel like the best in the league now that y'all beats the Stallions?
I don't want to say that yet. I don't want to jinx my team, but you know what? We've gone toe to toe with every team that's in the playoffs so far. The only team we haven't beaten yet is St. Louis, and believe me, this team is hungry for that win. It's hungry to go in St. Louis and steal one to maybe get the XFL championship game hosted in San Antonio.
I'll say I was definitely impressed with them holding Martinez to nothing to his normal numbers. I mean, usually this guy is everywhere, but he was not everywhere this game. And go ahead, Greg. You look like you had something to say on it.
No, I agree. And, I don't want to give away too much, but I went back and watched the game again, focusing on San Antonio's defense. I'm going to have a column on UFL board later on to break down exactly what San Antonio did to keep Adrian Martinez from hurting them too much. Like, you're not going to stop Adrian Martinez. He's probably the MVP of the league, and he still rushed for 56 yards and was still Birmingham's leading rusher. The key is not to stop him. The key is to limit him. And I think they limited the damage he did very well in a way that other teams haven't done yet.
Yes, sir. Very well stated. It couldn't be put any better than that, honestly. It seemed like once they shut that down, the Stallions were kind of stuck. They didn't really have a direction to head towards, in my opinion. You know, we've seen like Ricky Persons. He usually has a great game as well, and others amongst the board. But its defense in San Antonio really stepped up, man. Really, really stepped up. So it's great to see.
Definitely. Sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. I thought it was really surprising that Skip Holtz got away from the rush as quickly as he did. You know, Adrian Martinez threw the ball 32 times. CJ Marable, who was their starting running back at the beginning of the season, carried the ball just twice. Ricky Person carried the ball 7 times. And this was not a situation where Birmingham needed to throw the ball to come back. You know, they were in the game within one score, I think, basically the entire game. So for them to throw away the run game so quickly, it was a little surprising.
Yeah. Person Jr. -1 yard for the day. That's probably his worst game. Adrian Martinez had a total of 56 yards as well, and I know that's going to be one of his lowest games. What were you saying, Mike?
Oh, no, I was just going to kind of bounce off of that. Now, at the game, the environment and the feeling was like, it felt like we were up by 2 or 3 touchdowns all game long. And then you realize, oh, this is a UFL. We're only up by 9. That's 1 touchdown and 1 3-point conversion. But overall, the feeling, maybe it led to their sense of urgency and some of their inability to throw was the crowd. You know, they kind of felt like they were, maybe Birmingham felt like they were behind because of, like I said, the crowd and the score. It felt bigger than it was, you know. So that might have led to a little bit of that urgency and throwing the ball and kind of abandoning the run. But the run game for the run defense in the front 7 for the Birminghams, for the Brahmas, is top notch. I'd rank them at the very top of the UFL.
So before we move on from this, I want to hit the numbers as well as talk about Cody Latimer being injured. So we had 11,839 in attendance. And like I said, we're waiting on the TV averages still because of the holiday. It's delayed, so we'll have that up on socials tomorrow. This is pretty standard for San Antonio. Looking, I mean, this goes right along with the other games. So these are everybody's coming back. They're coming back for some more, which is always good. Hopefully, this next year, you know, they can really amp this up. 15, 20,000, that place should be live.
Yeah, I definitely see that happening. But the level of excitement that's built around this team, everybody loves a winner, and San Antonio loves a winner. Now, as far as attendance, I've been to games in San Antonio, Arlington, and Houston. The Arlington and Houston games, it feels like they were overreported a little bit, but it feels like the San Antonio games are underreported for some reason. I don't know if it's just because we're inside, but it looked like about 12 to 13, maybe even 14,000. It looked fuller than it was, and it was only a 500 ticket sales increase or attendance increase. But it feels. I said this on the last podcast. I will take 11, 12,000 San Antonio fans in that dome over 30,000 fans anywhere else.
I don't know about that now. Well, that's a little cocky, sir. Numbers speak, and I agree with you. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but those St. Louis numbers are I don't know. That's a high point to jump for any of these teams from this season. Looking at it so far. And they had Ryan Messer. He said, "Don't forget about the 12th man, the turf of the Alamo Dome."
Yeah, we've seen some people slipping, and it's those molded cleats. And my impression is once you get those molded cleats and they're taped a certain way where you can't really spat them anymore, that kind of takes away that traction in those cleats, those short molded cleats that are very popular nowadays, as opposed to the traditional cleats where you can change the cleat.
Yeah, it's different with the turf for sure. If you're practicing outside and you're trying to take your same footwear inside, that's probably not going to work out unless it's a real field. The tough's kind of hard too. It doesn't feel very good when you fall on it. Let's go to some comments. So while I'm looking at comments, we got Cody Latimer, and in my opinion, he was injured off of the straight up head bashing he took from Kenny Robinson. I know he had a concussion, but I mean, as it stands right now, we're not sure if that's the reason he's out for the season, correct?
Correct. We have nothing official yet.
If it's a concussion, that must be a pretty severe concussion to call him off already, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it was weird seeing him on the field. Like, you're trying to get a sense of what's going on. Are they moving extremities and things of that nature? And then I tried to watch the replay, and I don't know if he actually got hit on the head. If not, maybe the shoulder, neck area. I'd have to look at it again. And without the UFL providing us specifics on that, we're just guessing at this point.
Yes, sir. Yep. I just know even like Sunday, I saw a couple hits as well that were questionable, and I like big hits and I like seeing action, but dude, you don't want to see somebody get knocked out and in their season early. So hopefully they get some of that addressed.
Yeah, and to that point, Birmingham didn't really play like the Skip Holtz team. And what I mean by that, they got flagged for a couple of flagrant fouls, and I believe an incident that started on the field carried out behind the scenes as the teams were going to the locker room that the Moose had to break up.
Gotcha.
And it was the same individual who got flagged for the taunting.
Gotcha.
But yeah, this is uncharacteristic of Birmingham. Maybe we just caught them on the right day, and maybe we'll see them again later.
Yes, sir. Let's go to some comments. Greg, you got any comments on that? I mean, the hits, any of that?
Kenny Robinson's going to get a reputation very quickly as a dirty player with the way he played. He had that other on that 3rd and 26 incompletion, and he took a punch at Landon Akers after the incompletion, cost his team, a San Antonio would have had to settle for a field goal attempt, and Ryan Santoso had already missed one, and instead San Antonio turned it into a touchdown after getting that first down there. So he's got to be reined in a little bit by Skip Holtz and the coaching staff there, because he was a little out of control in this game. Yeah,
and he's been around. It's not like it's his first season. That's one of the seasoned veterans that's here. He just came from an NFL signing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers this past year in camp.
Hey, Brian Gertler said, are San Antonio winners, though, or just lucky?
What's the difference?
Well, they definitely won that game. I mean, Birmingham, you can say they didn't play up to their standard. They had some mistakes uncharacteristic that they don't usually make. There was that pass down the sideline late in the game from Adrian Martinez where Kevin Austin sort of lost the ball. And those aren't mistakes we often see Birmingham play. But make no mistake, San Antonio played a heck of a game, especially defensively. They had the right game plan against the right team. Offensively, they played well enough. They only put 18 points up on the board, so it wasn't like they put a 30 spot up there against Birmingham, but Birmingham's defense is tough. And you had Chase Garbers coming back from an injury, working his way back in. You had Cody Latimer, who was lost early in the game. So that was a weapon they didn't have at their disposal. As Mike mentioned, Anthony McFarland was still in and out with an injury. I think Morgan Ellison was in and out with an injury as well, to the point where they had to run Puka Williams on as a running back for a couple of plays. So, no, San Antonio definitely earned that one.
I like it. Mark Nelson said Cody Latimer is on IR as of tonight's transactions. Yeah, and we would have known that when the transactions dropped, but it seems like we always get a little bit of early feels. I don't know when this dropped. When did this news drop? Probably this afternoon. That's when I first saw it about Cody Latimer.
Yeah, I think it was there may have been a press conference or something like that, or someone had reported that he was likely to be out for the year. And then I think as we're recording, the UFL comms released the transactions for today, and that must have been on there.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to move on to the next one. Mike, you got anything else before we roll out?
Got one little thing here. Let's see if we can get this on the screen.
Oh, let me move this. Okay, there you go.
The yellow
shirt. Should have just wore your shirt, man.
I didn't want to be bright yellow on the TV. So
hey, if you're gonna claim your team, you got to claim the color.
That was my rally towel. I would look like a huge lemon wearing that thing. So that was my rally towel.
Appreciate you, Mike. Have a good night. We'll see you next time, sir. All right. Appreciate Mike for coming on again. Next up, we're going to talk about the DC game, and we're going to bring on my friend Matty Fresh. What's up, Matty? Sorry to make you wait, man.
Oh, it's all good, Matthew. I am exceptional tonight. I am excited to examine the way DC excelled over Memphis.
See what you did there, sir.
Get ready for the rest of the night, baby.
So where were you this week? I know you've been traveling before we roll into it.
I was in San Antonio, and let me say first, I see Greg Parks is on the stream. Greg, I can't tell you enough how much you influenced our show and just the information that I was able to get when I was kind of getting into this space and figuring out, did I want to do this or not? I read XFL board every single day in 2020 and continue to be a daily reader. What you and Mark do for the site and the other contributors as well is second to none. You guys are the best in the business, and this is really cool that we're getting to be on a call together here.
Wow. I very much appreciate that, Matty. Thank you so much for those kind words. Unbelievable. And, I've seen your work as well and really appreciate the work that you do too. And happy to be here with you guys.
Yes, sir. I appreciate both you guys. So you guys, you want to talk this out, hash it out. You just get me to shut up. I'll let you guys talk and let you do your thing. It's an honor for real to have you both on for a piece. But yeah, both of you guys, I appreciate your works. And I'll say, starting with Greg from my end, Greg, man, back in the day, same way with me. I mean, I was always on the board checking things out. Matty, you're what brought me the inspiration to do a live show. I mean, before my show was audio only, no video. It was real dry cut, edited, paste, yada yada. So things have really shifted, and I like how the Trinity works here. Everything kind of lines up and circles out, and we're good. So it's always a great time.
Like they're back, especially in 2020, and even before that, in the lead up to, I think, we had almost 2 years of information before the league kicked off in 2020, and there was really nowhere else to go but XFL board, and that was the place to be, on the message boards and everything. So yeah, I still have the tab open, and I haven't closed it since 2018. So
I love it, man. I love it. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the DC game. So your boys pulled off the win against Memphis, 36-21. That game was in Memphis. Really not too much of a surprise here in my opinion. We've seen the consistency from Memphis that since the San Antonios went in there and kind of knocked them out of their socks. Tell us more about this game and break it down for us, please, Matty.
Well, first off, I'll get it out of the way before I get too annoying with this. Great day for me because not only did DC get a win, finally, but they ended up being the team to clinch the XFL-USFL season series. Even if the USFL wins the championship, it'll be still 9-8. Now, some USFL fans want to count that as 2. I get that. All right, that's fair. Championship would be a huge deal. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see. I mean, I think this is an example, guys, of team, taking their anger out on the Memphis Showboats, right? This was something we saw in the Arlington Memphis game a week after the Renegades had just been eliminated officially from playoff contention. And they went in against Memphis and really took their anger out. I think there was a lot of emotion from DC in this game about, man, we can't really be in this position, right? Like, we were a favorite to make the playoffs again, coming off a very successful season where they come up just short of a championship last year. And, after the loss to, Michigan, and then the things that shook out, and they lose to St. Louis and the Dome gets swept, and you're thinking, this team has got to be angry. Like, I just know the passion and the energy that goes into this squad, and it starts with Reggie Barlow, and they really played inspired football, and that's kind of what I expected out of them. Memphis is just a team that it seems like they just keep getting the team's best effort in front of them, because you come out and you see Memphis and you're like, this is a chance, right, for a get right spot. And as John DeFilippo, like, that's the worst place you want to be is a team that's not intimidating, a team that doesn't really present any challenges, that there's no one strength that I look at the Memphis Showboats and say, oh, well, this is good, but this isn't so good. So yeah, I think it was half of this is DC obviously playing their best game offensively. They had a season high in yardage. I thought they played really well on third down. I thought they got their playmakers in space. They were very creative. Finally saw some Kiki QT using his speed, getting Chris Rowland in open field, putting Jordan in more run situations, and even guys like Darius Higgins getting involved offensively as they continue to work more guys into this offense. But yeah, it just, you look at a game like this and you're almost like, where was this against Michigan, where the offense was just non-existent? And a lot of credit goes to the Panthers and St. Louis the first time around to hold this offense. But yeah, no, I really kind of expanded. I know DC was a 5-point favorite coming in, and I just looked at that and said, that's just too low. I guess they're kind of, DC coming off the loss to St. Louis without McCarron didn't look great. Memphis kind of played Michigan close. So you're thinking maybe the Showboats were headed in the right direction, but clearly they were not. This game was 30-7 at one point, and it was just, it was over from there. Yeah.
It seems like everybody kind of, Memphis always can score and put points on the board, but it's either too soon or too late. They can't really put it all together to get that solid game ever.
Yeah, they did. I mean, I had 6 or 7 games in a row where they scored in the first quarter. A lot of those, though, they didn't play defense. I noticed DeFilippo this time around said, even if we're down 23, we're still going to run the ball. And that actually worked out with Darius Victor. He almost got 100 yards in the ground, and he scored, which, believe it or not, he only had 1 touchdown on the year coming into this, which is shocking for a guy who I had super high expectations for. And I don't really know if it's his fault. I think it's just bad game script with the defense constantly, having the Showboats down 20 in passing situations. And obviously the offensive line is probably the worst in the UFL. So, when they got Victor going a little bit, I was thinking maybe a little bit of a rally here, but I think, again, they just started the wrong quarterback. Hindsight's 20/20, but you probably start Josh Love here.
Yeah.
And then say, okay, well, Case Cookis or Troy Williams, can come in if Love is having some problems. But coming off that Michigan loss, I didn't see any reason where, Josh Love wouldn't get the start. So I was a little confused about that. But yeah, this is just a typical Defenders football game that you saw sort of last year, where they were able to hit a lot of slants. The RPO game was working. The defense got to the quarterback, forced a couple of turnovers, and it was just vintage DC, but too little, too late for Reggie Barlow and co.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Hopefully they can build on this for next year, though. You can really see the loss of Abram Smith in this team, in my opinion. In every game that they played this year, they don't have that key piece. Or even King, for example, being able to put that other quarterback in there and shift the offense and then make the defense move. You can definitely see the difference in this team this year, and hopefully they get back to their true and through colors, in my opinion.
Yeah, I actually do want to give a shout out to Greg, because I do remember his preseason article where he ranked every position group. And I remember being so mad, Greg, that you put the DC pass rush at last. I was like, no way. Like, come on, Greg. Like, you got to give him some more love. We got Trent Harris and all these guys. And then you're right. They have not got to the quarterback. They have not, like Davin Bellamy and some of these guys that were really good last year have kind of been no-shows. And, and then Mike Mitchell as well, as a guy who comes out and says, DC's going 5-5. I'm thinking, why is everybody turning on me? What's going on? But no, you guys were just being realistic that, looking up and down this roster, I think the conclusion was everybody went to the draft and got better. And DC kind of relied on their returning players. And in a league that got so much better, that was not a winning recipe to just bring everybody back and say, this is good enough. You had to get some more pieces. And if you look at their dispersal draft, like going back and looking down the line, like a lot of those guys either aren't on the squad anymore or they didn't make an impact this year. So it was a tough year for DC, but they needed this one and hopefully can finish 500 with a win over Arlington next week.
Yes, sir. Agreed. Let me stop this video. Let's talk about the numbers that were there. So it's been pretty lame there in Memphis. It's 6,387 in attendance. Like I've said earlier, guys, if you're watching, they have not put out the TV numbers yet. I repeat, they have not put out the TV numbers yet. As soon as they're out, we will post them. But this is no surprise in Memphis. It's been pretty typical. I traveled to Memphis week 2. Matty, you were there as well. And
great game.
It was a great game. I had a good time, but it was very dead. There was not much going on. Yeah. There was more going on outside event-wise than actual inside the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, we rolled up there thinking that was a Showboats tailgate. Boy, were we wrong. It was
Dude, I was ready. I was going to get some videos because that would have been the best tailgate. But yeah.
Yeah.
I know this Showboats offense is tough. And Case Cookus, if I look correct, let me look. So, yeah, he's still got 20 sacks on the season total. That's highest out of anybody that's the starting quarterback for any of these teams. And he hasn't started a couple games, if I remember correctly, as well. The Showboats offensive line has got to polish up. I don't know what's going on, why they can't protect the quarterbacks, but something's got to change with this team. You can't really blame it on Case Cookus, in my opinion. The dude's solid, but if you're pressured and injured, you can't expect to come through and have a 10-season successful games. It's just not going to happen. I mean, what do you guys feel is kind of what can improve this Memphis team coming into next year?
You go ahead, Greg. I'll let you start.
Thanks. It's going to take a lot. I mean, this is a roster that's going to, I mean, not to be rude or mean or anything, but this is a roster that's got to be completely overhauled. The defense can't stop anyone. The offensive line is in shambles, and it has been since the beginning of the year. I think a lot of people put their eggs in the Case Cookus basket and expected him to be a top half of the UFL type passer. And even without, taking away the offensive line struggles, I don't think Cookus has been all that impressive. I think the one area that they're strong is their receivers. I think they have some really dynamic receivers, Dawood Davis and Jonathan Adams and Vinny Papale. They're very different in some ways. You've got, Davis and Jonathan Adams that can stretch the field. Papale is kind of the underneath slot receiver. That they're set at receiver. Like, they don't need to touch that in the offseason, but basically everywhere else on the roster, offense and defense, needs an upgrade. So it really has been a struggle all throughout the season. Attendance has lagged too. I mean, they're not putting a winner on the field. They're not just losing. They're getting blown out in a lot of these games. Matty used the term "get right game." that a lot of teams have against Memphis. And I have a Parks' Pulse coming out tomorrow where I use that exact phrase to describe DC's performance against Memphis. So we're on the same wavelength there. So, I mean, it's going to be a big undertaking for Dennis Poley and John DiFilippo if they're back next year to get this team to a competitive point. You know, the difference between a Birmingham and a Memphis is an ocean of difference right now. What do they need to do to close that gap for next year? And it's going to take a lot of improvements up and down that roster.
Understood. What do you think, Matty?
Yeah, it's tough because obviously, I don't know if you guys heard this before you came on, but Moose Johnson coming out and saying the game's going to be for the number 1 draft pick now between Memphis and Houston, just like they did in the USFL last year. So that's probably something that Moose pushed for pretty hard, and he got what he wanted. And, you know, I think about that, and, let's say Memphis was able to win this game and build some momentum in the next year, get the number 1 pick. You know, is that going to be enough? I don't know. I go back to the UFL draft. I think it was the dispersal draft, and Lindsey Scott Jr. was the number 1 pick. And I was super excited about that. And then, you know, he just wasn't used all that much this year. And you keep thinking, well, the Renegades, you know, could have picked up somebody on defense, a really good pass rusher, like maybe Pita Taumopenu, or they could have got out and took a shot on Jacor Pearson, even though they're deep at receiver. Will Memphis, even if they do beat Houston, be able to like make the right pick at number 1? And it does help that if they do win, they'll also have the number 1 pick in every single round.
Yeah.
So that can help. But yeah, I just wonder how Memphis will go about this, right? Are they going to target fringe NFL practice squad guys? Are they going to try to, go after some rookies and some younger guys? Because yeah, I think about like Vegas in Orlando from last year. And I just think about how Rod Woodson was out pretty quickly after they went 2-8. Rod Woodson had fired his offensive coordinator midseason. Who knows how much longer T-Buck would have kept his job, if Orlando wouldn't have gone away. So I just think I think John DiFilippo will be back. How about the staff, though? What do we think about Doug Martin, about Carnell Lake, about some of their assistants? You know, I assume the core will be back in Polian and DiFilippo, but it makes you wonder, can Carnell Lake Memphis has given up, I think 30 or 32 or more points in 6 of the last 7 games. Like, can you survive as a defensive coordinator with that? And are they going to give him another shot? I don't know what you do if you're Memphis, but yeah, on the DC side of it, they have got to be better this offseason. I know Von Hutchins is really good. He brought a ton of key pieces back and kind of relied on that coming into this year. But then year 1, you have to think about the job Von Hutchins did building the DC roster and building a winner to begin with. So I know Hutchins has it in him. We're going to see like these GMs in the offseason, what they're really made of, because, in that turnover from UFL year 1 to now year 2, Birmingham kind of lapped the field, and Zach Potter did such a good job with acquiring talent. You're seeing that play out now. So yeah, I'll be interested to see where Memphis goes. As far as attendance, we talked about, there were times that crowd was loud in week 2. That's what you get, right? I know I heard XFL MikeG talking a lot about the San Antonio crowd, only 12K, but they were rocking. Like, seems like UFL fan bases are kind of like high tier college G5, where if you're a successful group of 5 program, you'll have not a lot of fans, but if the ones that are very supportive, that kind of feels like the same in the UFL. So yeah, I don't know if it would be much different if Memphis was a great team. I'm sure it would be better, but I just don't think winning is going to solve the attendance problem. I think at this point, it might be more of a deeper rooted, they're in the wrong city in Tennessee kind of problem. Maybe go to Nashville and you do a little better.
Yeah, I could see that as well. That's kind of one of the big questions over this offseason, in my opinion, is will this team stay in Memphis?
Yeah, well, we heard a lot about Nashville and Louisville when I know the Vipers, I had some sources that were talking about if the Vegas Vipers were to relocate, what cities would it be? A lot of talk of Nashville, a lot of talk about Louisville. So they're definitely looking to be in the South, and that's why they're in Memphis, because football in the South, like we've talked about a ton, Matthew, is just different. But yeah, I do think that they'd probably be better off a little more east.
Yeah, and in their defense, when they actually have a marketing budget, I think that'll help as well.
I hope so. I really do.
But when I don't know, you didn't have a chance to like go out or do much when you visited Memphis, did you? I mean, you told me you dropped right back on the plane, basically, right?
Yeah, my Uber ride to the game kind of turned me off to going out. So I was like, maybe I'm in the wrong part of the city. I should have gone to Beale Street, but if you've ever been from the airport to the stadium, you're like, where am I? This is not good.
There's a few good spots over there, man.
Yeah, downtown is where I should have been. Yeah.
I didn't see a lick of marketing in any of the spots I went to, and I went into the more the people that really live there. They're chill spots because I'm familiar with Memphis. I've been around Memphis. I've been there hundreds of thousands of times. Watched the Express a bunch over there. Stayed over there for all those games, and just from viewing that Express era, it's much different. Even when the Express was there, they were terrible. Worst team in the AAF, but they still had a big fan base. You'd go to bars, you'd go to restaurants, you'd see people wearing colors, hats. I mean, those things make a big difference. I asked people we ate a burger spot. I asked the waitress if she knew what it was, and she had no idea. She was like, "What are you talking about?" Anyway, it's unfortunate that Memphis has had the losing season they've had, and it's definitely not going to help, like you said. But would it really make that big of a difference? Look at Birmingham.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd like to think that the Texas teams, when they have a winner, things are a little different. But I don't know about Memphis. We'll see. I do have a lot of faith in Coach D. Flippo. I mean, he's obviously had a great amount of success in his career. Won a Super Bowl with the Eagles as a quarterback coach, and was an offensive coordinator a lot. So I think he's a good guy to bring back. He's got to build something around him. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, Greg, you got anything before we let Matty roll on out?
No, I agree. I think Coach Flip should be back. If nothing else, he makes for great all access on the UFL broadcast. So that in and of itself is a great reason to keep him around. But I do think he's going to have to take a long, hard look at the coaching staff in the offseason as well, same as the roster.
Yes, sir.
Before I go, Matthew, I do got to say, if any DC fans are watching this is a big game on Sunday. You got to come out. There's a lot of reason to. The weather's going to be nice. Arlington, there's a lot of bad blood between those two teams, right? And we kind of went through the championship loss. Then DC got their revenge, sort of, with a big comeback in week 3. And just these two teams are fun to watch. Expect a high-scoring game. And if you're a Defenders fan, this is one last chance at the Beer Snake. Both teams off huge wins. So this matchup will get overlooked, because San Antonio and St. Louis are going to duke it out, and that's going to be the headliner. But I think it'll be a great atmosphere. Unfortunately, won't be able to make it. I've been on the road so much this year that a third trip to DC was unfortunately not in the cards unless they made the playoffs. So, I think that either DC or Arlington, which it'll be interesting to see who the favorite is there too. I'm thinking the Renegades actually might be favored, but it'll be a good game like it was throughout the last 4 meetings that these two teams have had.
Be good to wrap it up there in DC as well. That last home game, close the season out, get a win.
Yeah, and can we have some Saturday games next year, please? I mean, just one Saturday night. I know DC United plays, but I mean, if anybody who wants to talk about the DC attendance, it would just be so much better on a Saturday. I just have a feeling that these, Sunday games and Mother's Day, and it's just, I think we're the only team in the league who played every single home game on Sunday. So that's been tough.
Yeah, I've contributors for the network that they haven't been able to do anything because they've got athletics all day that day, and it's been the same day all year. So it is what it is. But yeah, in my opinion, at least around here, I would like the season to start a little earlier just for the weather. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, you saw it in Houston last week. I mean, that's unacceptable. 98 degrees. I mean, turf was probably close to 140. I mean, that's brutal. And even, you saw some of the effects of that during the game. And hats off to anybody, if anybody's watching. Were you at the game, Matthew?
No, I was not. No.
Hats off to anybody who was. I mean, you deserve the UFL Fan of the Year award if you were in Houston. That was a hot, from everything that I heard, was inexplicably hot. So Yeah, you're right. I think, and the players agree too, at least the ones that I've talked to, that they'll have more time to get ready for NFL minicamp and NFL training camp if the season does get pushed back. But we are hearing rumors, potentially, nothing confirmed yet, of a March 1st potential date. So hopefully they go with that next year.
Cool. Yeah, that won't be too bad then, for sure.
Yeah.
I had a comment I wanted to hit your way before we rolled out. Rick 8-Bit said, the legends of spring football. I appreciate what all three of you bring to the table.
If you're talking about Matthew and Greg, absolutely. I still got to cut my teeth in this industry here, especially with, I got to get some more USFL fans on my side. I don't do a very good job of that.
Yeah, me and Greg both just laugh at that.
Yeah. Good luck.
No, Rick is great. Rick with the Tecmo ball, man. I play that all the time. That thing is sweet.
Yeah, he's got some cool stuff. They've got a whole little network of their own as well that they all kind of coordinate together and work, because it's programming and coding. So, you get this from this person and you do this from this person.
Sweet. Yeah, we need more of it. I can't wait to play everyone talks about the new EA Sports college football game coming out, and I'm excited for that. But, man, when we get this UFL video game in 10 years, can't wait.
When we can type in AI, make me a UFL video game, and then it pops out. And we get it. We'll get
Let's
it then
it.
for sure.
Let's do it.
Matty, man, I appreciate you greatly. And hey, before you roll out, are you planning on going to any of the playoff or the championship games?
I'll be at the championship in St. Louis. Hopefully see you guys there. And if not, I know the semifinals are in, well, we don't know for the XFL side, and then Birmingham for the USFL side. I don't think I'm going. You're going to that. I'm not going to either of those, but I will be at the championship in St. Louis.
We'll see about the championship. I'm still kind of deciding, but Birmingham, I will be there. So be a good time. Sweating my butt off. Thank you, Matty, dude. Hey, plug your show real quick. We got a lot of people listening.
Yeah, go check out Spring Ball Boulevard. My producer, Chris Zook, does an amazing job putting up with me and all the crazy things that go on our show. But we do a show Thursday and Sunday night live. Thursday night is a preview. Sunday night is kind of a NFL primetime style highlight recap, trying to channel my inner Chris Berman for some of those. And then we talk about the games. But yeah, check out Spring Ball Boulevard on YouTube under Matty Fresh, and drop us a chat.
Yes, sir. I'll have all the links in the notes as well, guys. And I've kind of had you rolling as well during the conversation at the bottom.
And anyone who's listening, what Matthew's doing is very important. A lot of us, I know I have my show, but with Greg and with some of the beat writers that he brings on, and really just a collection of talent, it's important because it gives us more of a platform than just our own thing that we do, whether it's to be on air or write or whatever. So make sure if you're watching and you're considering whether to subscribe or not, hit that subscribe button, show this man some love. He does some really hard work. And I hope this thing continues to grow because it's really cool.
Thank you, Matty. Really appreciate that, man. Same for you. Keep doing your thing, dude. Authentic as it gets, baby. Keep doing it. Thank you, sir.
Right. I'll catch up with you guys.
Yes, sir. All right. Got that. So this show's went on a little longer than normal, Greg, and I apologize. But I feel like it's been good. We're not just ranting and raving too much.
I can do a little more ranting and raving if that's what the people want. I try to cut back on my ranting and raving, but yeah.
You know that's what most people want. They just want to see us getting on here and arguing, and we're not doing that.
Unfortunately.
Let's talk about Game 4. This was actually a really good game, as much of the Roughneck games have been, in my opinion. The Michigan Panthers battled Houston, and it was a hot day that way. The Panthers pulled it off 26-22 in that last quarter, the last few minutes of the quarter. They caught up. I will say that we have a video from Mike Bell, and he'll break it down fully for us. But this was another game that I feel like the Roughnecks could have won. I've watched them almost win, I think, 4 games, and it comes down to being disciplined, making the correct decisions as a coach and a staff, and I feel like a lot of that is indicative of these losses that they keep taking. No, they're not the best team, but they have been given the opportunity to beat a lot of good teams, and it's unfortunate that they can't just ride it out and pull it together. Now, it came down to them doing one more offensive drive is what's sad to me, and they could not do it. The Panthers clawed back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter, like I said. And to me, it's just sad for Roughneck fans as well, because I was a Roughneck fan last year. I know it's not a good time to be a Roughneck fan. But guys, you should really, your blessings are here. You see that this team isn't that bad. They just need to put some stuff together. I'm not sure how they're going to put that together. But anyway, what do you think about this game, Greg?
I was rooting for Houston. I really was. They really had Michigan on the ropes a week after playing Birmingham really hard. And I think if you're looking for a silver lining, it's that head coach Curtis Johnson has not lost this team. They're continuing to play hard. I know there's speculation about Johnson and his job security in the offseason. And I think it's a feather in his cap that these players are continuing to play hard when they're outmatched in a lot of ways against like teams like Michigan and Birmingham that are going to the playoffs and representing the USFL conference. I do agree with you that this is not a players only problem. I think the coaching staff has let them down in some ways with the decision making, with some of the calls. And that's unfortunate because the players have really given it their all. And it's been a combination of those two, really. The players, as you mentioned, the discipline just hasn't been there all season, and that's on the players, but also the coaching staff and some of the decisions they've made with play calls and things like that have not paid off. So I do think their roster up and down is a little stronger than Memphis, and we're talking 1-8 teams heading into the last week of the season, so they have that advantage. I would say Houston should be favored over Memphis in the final week of the season, but we know anything can happen. So I think there's some pieces there. They just have really struggled putting it all together. I think their defense, for the most part, has played well this season. Offense has struggled. They got Mark Thompson back, so their running game came back a little bit. I think they've got to figure out who their quarterback is going to be next year and whether that person is on the roster right now. I know they've cycled through Jarrett Garantano and Reed Sinnett and Nolan Henderson. They've all had their moments, but none of them has stood out above the others. None of them have displayed the level of consistency you'd be looking for if you're looking for a starter in 2025. So, it's going to be another important offseason for them, just the same as it is in Memphis, is trying to patch a lot of the holes that you have on the roster and, deciding what happens at the coaching staff level.
Yes, sir. Agreed. And we're going to play the video from Mike in a bit, and I believe it's 6 minutes long, and he'll go into a deep dive into most things Michigan. But when it comes to Houston, there seems to be this negativity that's come from the fans where they're calling for new coaches and new GMs, and we're going to write a petition and yada, yada, yada. And guys, I feel your frustration because Houston hits home in my heart as well. But like I keep saying, give CJ Johnson a chance. Let him do his housework. Let him figure out his team. Yeah. Next year we come in and we see that this isn't adequate, that there's things going on, that we can't pull a drive off to win a game multiple times. Then it's time to question the coach a little bit more and say, what are you doing? Why is this happening? It's unfortunate. I'd like to go to some of the midday conferences. I just don't have time. So, because I really want to see what he says. But from my talking with him in the first few weeks, it was like, we never really got any definite answers. It was more of general yada, yada, rah type speak where, we're going to get motivated and we're going to come out and play as hard as we can. And so I really want to know, what are we going to do next year to make this team successful? What are you going to do to get the fans to come out and support this team? I seen there was some articles rolling around about TDECU coming back, and we already knew that. That's not nothing that's new. We knew that they had a deal that they had to finish doing the repairs before the UFL or XFL could use that stadium in Houston again. So this team will be back next year. The question is, who's going to be there leading them?
And I think you mentioned about giving Johnson a chance to analyze his staff and to make changes if necessary. If this was the normal protocol for pro football, I mean, that would be the first step, right? You don't get rid of the head coach immediately. You give him a year, allow him to get rid of some coordinators and hire new people. But then after that, it's going to be his head that's on the chopping block. So whether or not that takes place, I don't know. He is in his second season as Houston head coach because he was the head coach of the Gamblers last year, had a 5-5 record. So, it's not like he has a history of 1-2 win seasons and you decide, okay, let's drop this guy. He was a 500 coach last year, so that may have bought him another year in the UFL in 2025. But if that is the case, I think you're right. It's going to make next year all the more important for him.
Yes, sir. Agreed. We got, what's up? Analyze and Educate. Pat, how you doing, man? He said, in my opinion, Houston has shied away from their strengths in 2023, a more pro-style 12 personnel with more play action and quick game. You saw the success with option routes with a guy like Merritt or Hall. I'm not sure that they totally know what direction they're going in Houston, and that's my opinion. It seems like if you look at week 1 and 2 compared to now, I don't know. I try to keep up. All I know is Mark Thompson is part of their success. And Justin Hall is obviously an athlete as well. What are you going to do to keep these guys going? And let's see how many carries Mark Thompson had. Let me look at it real quick. I know in past games, we've been lucky to get in double-digit carry territory with Mark Thompson. So that's kind of why I'm wondering.
He had 11 last game.
So he had
Michigan.
So before, I think the week prior he had 10 or 13 or something like that. So they have been amping up his load.
I do think the injury to Kirk Merritt earlier in the year is sort of an underrated reason for Houston's lack of offense because he was a guy that could really open things up. He was a guy who could run the ball, who could catch the ball. He was a guy who they could use out in space and be a really dynamic player that I think they've kind of missed. Justin Hall has filled that role a little bit, but to have Kirk Merritt out there on the field and give them two really big threats in the open field would have helped open up this offense. And when he got hurt, I think that really limited Houston and what they could do offensively.
Yeah, I agree with that. Merritt was a freak of nature, and that's for sure. He's been an athlete, but playing him like they did, he was bound to get hurt. I mean, he was doing everything week 1. He was doing a lot of the offense. So, and Pat said their playbook was find Kirk. So yeah, I was disappointed about that because I'm a Saints fan, so I know Kirk very well. I know that name very, very well. And Pat said Thompson 114 and 22, 157 and 23, and 57 and 24. My God.
Yeah, he missed the first couple of games with injury. I think it was the first 3 or 4 games maybe this year, which plays a part into those numbers. But yeah, I don't know if they've kind of wanted to ease him in. I know he's been frustrated at times as well. But yeah, you would think that giving him the ball a little more and establishing that more consistent ground game would be a bigger key to their success this year.
Yes, sir. Agreed. And then he said 8 games in 23. So interesting. All right. I'm going to hit the clip from Mike Bell and let him do his thing. Like I said, it's about 6 minutes long, guys. So watch it and chill. Keep in mind, Mike Bell's got a newborn baby at home. So his life's a little bit hard right now. So I appreciate him greatly for taking the time to send the clip. He was supposed to come on tonight, but he had some stuff come up, and it's totally understandable. No problem at all. Just wishing you the best, Mike. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to hit this clip, and then we'll be back, Greg, when I find it somewhere. It's when you send video files in MP4 or different formats, you can only play one here and one there, so it's kind of complicated. Here we go.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't join the show today, but let's do a little bit of a recap of Michigan Panthers versus Houston Roughnecks. Big story coming in today is the QB position. Who was going to be QB1? Who's going to be QB2? Last couple weeks, it's been Brian Lewerke and Bryce Perkins. This week, we get Danny back. Danny Etling is back in the fold. He was a guy that was building some positive momentum in the team before he went down with a left hand injury. But if you asked and polled the Michigan Panther fan base, they would tell you Bryce Perkins is our choice for QB1. So today, going into it, QB1 Etling, QB2 Bryce Perkins. How would that shake out for the game? And are we still trying to win the conference? The answer is yes. As you see, we score first, and we are leading the league in scoring first. A great team in the first quarter, and we're also outscoring teams in the fourth quarter. Now the Roughnecks come in with Nolan Henderson at the helm. He's a product out of the University of Delaware, and the unique thing about him is not only is he got some pretty good accuracy, but he also has the wheels. He can extend the drives with his feet, and this is a good test for the Panthers as they get ready to face Adrian Martinez and possibly Matt Corral next week. And if we get a little bit further down the line, you're going to see one of the issues and one of the problems with the Panthers right now is giving up the big play. That happened versus the Showboats with David Davis, 82-yarder. Happened versus the Renegades, and it happens here again as Justin Hall gets a long pass over the middle, doesn't even get touched all the way to a score. I can't wait to see the speed with real analytics on this one. As you can see, Kainaku is not in the game on this actual play. That was Kedrick Whitehead Jr. Justin Hall had himself a day. And as you can see, they take the lead here 9-6. A little bit later, Justin Hall is going to get it again. And he's going to score a second time. Another great play by Nolan Henderson, who's just continuing to make good plays and really wants it out there. It would have been neat to see him start the year at the quarterback. Here's that play. First and goal. Fake to Mark Thompson. Wide receiver screen out to the left. Justin Hall gets in, and he adds on the 1-point conversion with a run, too. Right after that. But then we get to see Bryce Perkins. This is a guy that was backup for the St. Louis Rams last year. He actually did start a game in relief. This guy came in. We did not expect him to grasp the offense as quick as he did, but he has. He is patient in the pocket. He has a quick release. He has a great connection with COC Mariner, who had himself a day. 8 receptions for 95 yards. 12 for 15 for Bryce Perkins with a couple of TDs. Trey Quinn, and he has 79 yards on the ground. As you can see, they're down 10 here. And then the Roughnecks put it up 22-12. And Bryce Perkins has got to make a 10-point comeback in the fourth quarter. And he does that with his legs. He does that on the ground as he's been finding people over the middle. He finds people on the sidelines. And you can see as he uses his feet right here, empty set pocket, right up the middle. And the thing that you notice on this day is that every time he has ran the ball and scored, there's been a Houston Roughnecks defender that has gone to the medical tent afterwards. People bounce off him. He's a strong guy. They're playing in 110-degree heat out there. He puts the game within Jake Bates' range, 22-19. All he needs is a field goal. And we're going to get that here as you got to see this pass. Let me review it right here. This was one of the plays of the week. I can't believe it was only number 6 on UFL today. Look at that. It's a clear interception, but COC Mariner with his left hand pulls it out of that out of the defender's hand and secures it for the completion. Amazing play. And then we're going to go right into Bryce Perkins with another play on his feet. RPO to the left with Colburn and just dances right in, outruns Odom on the edge. They take the lead 26-22 here, and it's really just down to the defense. And this is a defense that has struggled at the linebacker position with keeping people healthy. Frank Ginda's out for the year. Noah Dawkins got roughed up again in this game. He was out. Javen White had a few stingers. They've had some trouble keeping guys healthy at that position. And, you look at your safeties to help in that case. Kainaku has had some, concussion issues. But it all came down to the front four as Breland Speaks gets 3 sacks on the day. Monster sacks, especially on this drive. Puts the game out of reach. We can get to, I believe it's this play. You can see Breland Speaks lining up here. He's going to roll out of the pocket. Speaks is right there, and it's just the intimidation. And I want to leave you on this clip right here when he throws the 3, as that's the story of the day. Breland Speaks with 3 sacks. Mike Tafua and Rondell Carter with another sack for 4 sacks on the day. And Tafua is the guy that we had waived a week ago to sign Levi Bell, who got injured at pregame warmups. Bring Tafua back. What a great day for the Panthers to hold on, to battle back down 10 in the fourth quarter. We're looking ahead now to the Birmingham Stallions. Will they play Bryce Perkins at QB1? Mike Nolan said in the conference call this week, they're still trying to decide who to put at QB1. I think it's pretty obvious Bryce Perkins is the guy. They do have an affection for Danny Etling and his feel for the offense, his terminology, his relationship with Coach Marcel Belfay. I think it's going to be Perkins. Will we see him in Week 10? I don't know, because do you want to give the Stallions, practice on him? I don't think so. I think you should play Etling and Lewerke. Keep Perkins ready to go for the playoffs. Got a good feeling about it. Let's see. As far as attendance, it seemed like there wasn't a lot of people in the crowd, but it was about average. And excited for another week of Week 10 Michigan Panthers football. Hope the season keeps going for us. Thanks for your time.
I guess I got to unmute myself for you to hear me, right? I was about to get it too.
I'm not quite where I need to be in reading lips yet.
Yeah, it was good breakdown from Mike. I was just saying he's pretty adamant about his team in Michigan, and look forward to seeing what he does. He should be at some of the playoff stuff as well, I believe, but we'll see. Wanted to review the TV numbers. I don't think I brought them up yet. The attendance numbers. 6,500 in attendance. Like I said, we're still waiting on the average TV viewers. I know you're tired of hearing me say that, guys, but just in case you tuned in late, it's holiday, so it'll probably come out tomorrow. This is on standard with Houston. We've seen it since the beginning. They really haven't had much success in their attendance. Memphis and Houston are very similar, I feel like, in their attendance numbers. Houston's just a little bit worse because Rice is so big. It's kind of hard to see. At least in Memphis, they put everybody on one side, so you get the feel for what's going on. But yeah, what do you think so far, man? What do you think about the attendance there in Houston?
Well, it's a struggle. I think there's some people who believe that will improve if they go back to TD-ECU Stadium. I'm not sure if that's going to make a big difference, although people who know the Houston market maybe better than I do think otherwise. So hopefully that's the case. But, it's the combination of you have a team that's not doing very well. You don't really have any players that are really probably recognizable names, any household names that you can kind of market locally. I mean, they don't have an AJ McCarron, like St. Louis does. They don't have an Adrian Martinez or a Matt Corral like Birmingham does, or Bo Scarborough when he started the season there. Obviously, there's an attachment there to the local community from his days in college. There's just not that name that's going to bring people out to the games for Houston. So hopefully, like every market, they're going to do a lot of groundwork this offseason in trying to get the advertising out there and trying to let people know, because I think part of it is a recognition problem. People don't really know what the UFL is. Maybe they haven't heard of it. If they don't watch ESPN and Fox religiously and see the commercials that air all the time on there, they may not be aware of it. They may not even be aware that they have a team in their community. I don't think there's a lot of local reporting in Houston on it. And I know what the many times that I've been on the CJ Johnson conference calls, I don't think I've seen any mainstream local outlets on those conference calls with Johnson. So, the league and the team have to reach out to the local newspapers, the Houston Chronicles, and, offer them up some coverage, and hopefully that breaks through.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. It's just a different feel in Rice. And being there from last year to this year, I attended the first game of the season this year there. Mm-hmm. And it's just completely different. I mean, you went from being, we sat in the box at TD-ECU where it was a pretty good box. You didn't have a whole lot of people, but it was still enough individuals in there that it filled up the room. Mm-hmm. Good conversation, good networking. That first game I went to, there was absolutely like 3 people in the press box. So it was much different in terms of feel. I mean, the field's a little older, and I can appreciate that. I don't have a problem with that. But and Demarcus made a statement. He said, Roughneck fans don't trust Johnson like they did Phillips either. And I think that goes back to the recognition like you just spoke about. I mean, they had June Jones back in the 2020 era. We had Wade 2023. Now, you've marketed these names, and you're not really offering anything for this new season compared to the last couple.
Yeah, that's a factor as well. That Wade Phillips and June Jones both had ties to the Houston area that I'm not sure that CJ Johnson does. I don't know his full background, so I'm not sure. But I know he comes from, the New Orleans Saints, being a longtime NFL wide receivers coach. And, they doesn't have that name recognition in the area that Wade and June did.
Yeah, I agree with you. But anyway, before we move on, is there anything else on this game?
No, I think it was covered pretty well.
Sounds great, man. We're just going to move on, and we're going to briefly recap the next week 10 games, talk about who's playing and where they're playing. Feel free to add whatever details you'd like, though. But anything can be a conversation, no problem. So Saturday, June 1st, the Michigan Panthers take on the Birmingham Stallions in Birmingham. That game starts at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, and it's on ESPN. And it's going to be hot as hell out there. Any comments on this game, Greg?
No, I think the point that Mike made about maybe not playing Bryce Perkins against Birmingham, that was a point I made on social media during the Michigan-Houston game on Sunday. Is I think, first of all, I know EJ Perry is getting healthy again too, so there's another quarterback to consider starting for Michigan. But I really think it's a no-brainer. I think it's Bryce Perkins you go with. I think he gives you the best chance to win, the most dynamic player on that team. But I agree. I would not play him against Birmingham. I wouldn't want Birmingham, and granted, they practice against Adrian Martinez, who they're sort of similar players. So maybe that gives Birmingham an advantage. But knowing that you play Birmingham the next week in the playoffs, if I'm Michigan, I don't want them to get that sneak peek at Bryce Perkins and figure out how to play him defensively so that they're more prepared in that USFL conference game. I run with Danny Etling, or I run with EJ Perry, or even Brian Lewerke. It doesn't really matter at that point. You're playing in Birmingham anyway in the USFL conference championship. So if I'm Michigan, I keep Bryce Perkins under wraps for this week.
Yes, sir. Agreed. And this will be the first of their 2-game series. Also, the next week they'll come through and play the USFL Conference Championship. Mm-hmm. Just noting that for people at home, not for you. I know you know. All right, let's go on to the next game. Saturday, June 1st as well. The San Antonio Brahmas take on the St. Louis Battlehawks in the Battle Dome. The game starts at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, and it's on Fox. This should be a good game, and they're actually got something to play for here. Like we discussed before the show, I mean, this home field advantage is going to be crucial for the Brahmas or the Battlehawks, whichever way it goes. I mean, that's a tough place to play in St. Louis, but man, it'll make some awesome games for 2 games in a row. If they can do, two Battle Dome games for the playoffs and then the championship, I would love to watch that. But regardless,
I think the league would prefer that too, if they had their choice. But I think you could look at Birmingham, Michigan, and say neither team has a whole lot to play for in that game. Does Birmingham maybe rest Adrian Martinez a little bit to make sure he's healthy for the championship game? This St. Louis San Antonio game is the opposite. I mean, there's a lot at stake here because this isn't just the difference in playing in, Memphis and Houston, where there's not really a home field advantage there. There is a huge home field advantage difference between playing in St. Louis and playing in San Antonio. So, if you're St. Louis, you definitely want to play in front of your home fans. You think that gives you an advantage. And if you're San Antonio, yeah, you want to play in front of your home fans. They played a big part in them winning against Birmingham. But even more than that, you don't want to play probably in front of those St. Louis fans. So both teams, there's a lot at stake in this one, and it's going to be exciting.
Agreed, 100%. This is probably my game of the week to watch, honestly, in my opinion. Sunday, we got the Arlington Renegades taking on the DC Defenders. That game is in DC. It comes on at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, and it's on ABC.
Yeah, this is the one game this weekend where I guess there's really nothing to play for, nothing at stake, nothing playoff wise, going on in this game. But I do think it will be, I think Matty talked about it being an offensive game. I think it definitely will be. I think both defenses have really disappointed this year. Arlington, under a defensive coach like Bob Stoops, you expected them to be better. They really carried the team when the offense was struggling last year. They haven't showed up this year. And same thing with DC. The defense has really struggled a lot more than expected under Greg Williams this year. So I think it will be an offensive afternoon in DC. And I think there's some intrigue about Arlington. Are they going to play Lindsey Scott? Are they going to play Holton Ahlers? And so there might be some intrigue from that point of view. But I think it'll be, at least if nothing else, a pretty high scoring affair.
Yes, sir. I think it'll be entertaining for sure. It's upsetting that they don't have anything to play for in terms of postseason, but this should be a pretty good matchup. If Arlington comes out like they've came out last game, as well as DC, I mean, this is going to be a fight. Be very.
I think both teams that a lot of fans feel are better than their record, and these teams are going to want to show that.
Yep. Agreed. And then our last game of the week is on Sunday as well. The Houston Roughnecks take on the Memphis Showboats in Memphis. That game comes on at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's on Fox. This is the battle of the losers. Baby. Yeah. And then they've added some meat to the bone there, telling whoever wins this game gets that first pick in the draft. And like you said, it's not a snake draft. So this is a first pick every round. That's humongous. That is a really, really good thing for whatever team gets it. And so this will be a match, a battle. And I'm not trying to my money's on the Roughnecks at this point after watching Showboats, come in and come out and not be able to make much happen. And I don't know. This one's going to be entertaining as well. I said game of the week for that Brahmas game, but I don't know. I'm going to definitely watch this game to see what happens as well.
It's going to be interesting. Last game of the season, these guys, they're playing to put stuff on tape for NFL teams. And so even if the number one pick in the UFL draft was not at stake, every one of these players has something individually at stake that they're playing for. So they're going to play hard, they're going to play tough, and they're going to want to finish out the season strong.
Yes, sir. Hopefully the attendance in Memphis holds up as well. It seems like to me that's kind of around the 6,000 is kind of around their season ticket purchasers or people that have purchased tickets season wide. That doesn't mean they're at the game, but they've definitely paid for the tickets. So we'll see what happens on that end also. So that'll wrap up week 10. Just like I said, we just want to do a quick recap. We've already been on here for an hour and 40 minutes. So I'm going to roll into the comments and then we'll get out of here if you're good with that.
Of course.
Sounds good. I'm looking through Excalibur. Good evening. What's up, Excalibur? How you doing? Do you know Excalibur, Greg?
I don't think so. Although I love the picture.
So he is a medieval St. Louis Battlehawks knight that he dresses. He's a super fan. He dresses up for the games. He's got his own.
I've probably seen him on TV then.
You've seen him because he's busy. Yeah. I had him on last year when the show was still in its infancy, and he came on and we did the show and he came full gear, but we just do audio. So it's not on the video. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. I thought you knew. My bad. But he's a really good guy. He's, like I said, he's got his own little crew. They all do kind of a dress. It's his family. They dress up and they do their characters and they do a good job. So hope you're doing good, Excalibur. And then Rick 8-Bit said Cody Latimer has opted for surgery per his social media. So while we were listening to the videos, I pulled this up quickly so we can see what's going on. So he says, thank you at UFL Brahmas. It's been a pleasure. To my teammates and coaches, job's not done. Go finish this run. Time to get this surgery and attack the rehab. So not really sure. I guess it sounds like it's something related to a bodily injury. It's definitely not your brain if you're getting surgery that easy.
Well, it's interesting because attack the rehab kind of makes it sound like he's, rehabbing to come back, which we've been told on the last 2 weeks broadcast that this is going to be his last season. So you have to wonder if this injury and him not being able to go out on his own terms has made him think twice about hanging up the cleats. We'll have to see. We'll have to wait for the official word on that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because we really didn't get to see him turn that switch on like he did last year. Last year, you got some amazing plays by him, stuff that you think about now, and that's literally some of the best memories from that Orlando squad.
Yeah, and I think he would have had the potential to have some big games here down the stretch, final week of the season and into the playoffs for the Brahmas.
Yes, sir. Agreed. So, guys at home, if you got any more comments, question them or send them in. Send the questions in quickly because I'm running out of words. We've been on after almost a 2-hour mark. I kind of so yeah.
We've used all the words. All the words are gone. They're done. There are no more words left.
Oh, Greg. Man, are you planning on going to any of the playoff games or championship?
No, it's just not going to work for my schedule. Unfortunately, I also hate to travel, so that's holding me back too. But I wish we had a team around where I am here down in South Florida. I was able to make it up to a Guardians game last year, and I actually had plans to go to a couple Tampa Bay games back in 2020 before the pandemic hit and wiped out the rest of the season. So I was really disappointed about that. But yeah, I won't be able to make it out to any of the playoff games this year.
Hey, I understand, man. I'm definitely making the USFL one just because it's about 5 hours for me drive wise.
Yeah.
The championship game, it's kind of iffy. With everything going on, I've been so busy, dude. The first 2 games I traveled and I could not keep up with the workload and have a successful podcast. I felt like I was just like throwing the podcast together and not really preparing and doing it adequately. So I haven't been to a game since week 2, but I mean, it's working all the time on it. So
yeah.
I look forward to hitting up Birmingham. I haven't been there yet, so it should be a good time. But yeah, Greg, it's always a pleasure, man. We'll check out your stuff. I try to share your stuff as much as possible.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Matthew.
Anytime, man, and I appreciate the time that you spent with us. We always do a long when you come on. I mean, it never fails. It never fails. But yeah, dude, I appreciate you. Thank you. Much respect to you and the UFL board crew, Mark Nelson and all the other riders that way. Mark said he's actually going to be at the championship game in St. Louis. So
yes, yeah, he did talk to me about that. So pleasure being here, Matthew. I know you've come a long way. This show has come a long way since I first appeared on the show, and it's been awesome to see you grow the show into what it is, and really appreciate the invite.
Thank you, sir. Anytime you want to come on, you pop on in, sir. It's always appreciated, man. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All right, let's wrap it up. Appreciate Greg again for coming on. Guys, if you don't follow Greg or keep up with his work, you really should, especially when it comes to this space. He's one of the prime time writers, one of the people that can really articulate their thoughts and feelings, and you don't feel like you're reading an opinion piece. You're reading information. You're getting what you need to make your own decisions and kind of think for yourself. So that's really why I value Greg and the UFL board crew in general. It's a great crew. Let me think. Oh, next week's show. So right now we're set for Tuesday, but we may go a day early on Monday. I'll be kind of traveling next week, not related to the game. And so I may have to go a day early. I'll let you guys know on social media if so, but really I quit kind of doing the big calendars and the week-long posts to get people in, because the guerrilla last minute kind of live stream style, it really works well for me and in our platform. And I mean, others try to do it as well, and I see it's a success for them as well. So it's more enjoyable too whenever you're going into the show not having to, I don't know, give someone a product. Like, this is what we offer. We're not going to have something different every show. This is what we do. So appreciate you watching. If you watch the whole show, greatly appreciated. Check back in anytime. Feel free to message me or any of the guys you see on. Most people are pretty nice. They'll talk to you as long as you're not toxic and all negative. We do like conversation. UFL Week 10 is upon us. It's been a long 10 weeks. It definitely went by fast, but it definitely went by slow as well. running everything on the social media end is time consuming, as well as having to do the website and such, but it's enjoyable. Last year, myself speaking, I got to go to a lot of the games, basically every Houston game I was at. It was fun as well, but you can kind of see your effectiveness and what you're trying to do depending. So I don't know. We'll see what happens this next year with games, but I've enjoyed the couple of games I went to. Hopefully get to do some more. I don't know. It'd be cool to have a New Orleans team to go. That would be awesome. But anyway, thank you again for watching. Let's go with some comments. Got Pat. Good work, man. Appreciate you, Pat. Always great stuff from Pat as well. Y'all check him out on YouTube. Chris, you're just hitting it up. Great show. Appreciate you, Chris. Chris always got the best comments. Chris, you definitely win the best comment award. No doubt. You always make me laugh. Pat should be a guest next time. Hey, sounds good to me. I'll hit Pat up, see if he's interested. Well, appreciate you all again for watching. Don't forget, Week 10 games this weekend. We got a couple more weeks, and then I can get rid of YouTube TV. But yeah, thank you again. It's always a pleasure. I will inform everyone about next week's show in a couple days. I'm kind of sitting on the fence trying to decide, but either way, it's going to be Monday or Tuesday. And so, yeah, thank you again. Can't put it into words the way I feel about the show, the supporters, the fans, the people that comment, that do things for the network. It's great to see a collaboration as such, and we're just going to keep growing and doing our thing. We just do what we do, and we're going to keep doing it best we can do it. So thank you all again. Until next time, I'm Matthew Tyler, and that's it.
Go hard, go home, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go hard, go hard, go home. Touchdown like an end zone. When the circle turn to my home, can't get me out of my zone.